What makes a customer choose your business again and again? Today, we explore how truly understanding your customer's mind is the cornerstone of a powerful marketing strategy. We are embarking on a deep dive into, well, a really foundational perspective on marketing strategy. We're drawing heavily from the insights in the source material you provided, particularly the E-Myth Revisited.
That's exactly right. And we're not just, scraping the surface here. The goal is to really unpack the essential principles. Some might even seem a bit startling. It's all about building a marketing strategy that genuinely connects, that moves way beyond just making assumptions about your customer.
Right, to understand how they actually make decisions.
Precisely, the actual mechanics of it.
And our mission for this deep dive is to meticulously pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights from this material. Think of it like a shortcut for you, the listener. We're doing the legwork to help you get informed on this, well, absolutely critical part of business.
And you should be prepared because this source material, it doesn't really pull any punches. It challenges a lot of the conventional wisdom about why people buy things, offers some genuinely surprising ideas that could, frankly, reshape your whole approach.
Okay, great. Let's dive right in then. Let's unpack this perspective, starting with the absolute core principle the source insists on for marketing strategy. It's put forward with almost brutal clarity, isn't it? Your marketing strategy starts, ends, lives, and dies with your customer, full stop.
It sounds simple, almost deceptively so. But the implications, as the source points out, are huge. When you actually sit down to develop or, refine your marketing strategy, it says you must completely forget about your own dreams for the business.
Forget your own dreams.
Yeah, your visions, your personal interests, even what you want the business to be.
That feels, well, it feels counterintuitive. Isn't passion the driving force for entrepreneurs?
It often is,
Yeah.
based on, the usual stories we hear.
Mm.
But purely from a marketing strategy viewpoint, this source is adamant. It stresses over and over that what the customer wants is the only thing that matters in marketing, period.
So your job isn't fulfilling your own vision through the customer.
No, it's about fulfilling the customer's desires. That's it.
And the source suggests there's often a pretty big gap between what the business owner thinks the customer wants and what they actually want.
A very significant gap, potentially.
I,
It posits that if you really investigated, what the customer truly desires is probably quite different from your assumptions. And bridging that gap, that's the entire point of doing marketing strategy effectively, according to this view.
that difference is just, wow, foundational. It means my brilliant idea, my amazing product, my passion, they don't matter in a marketing sense unless they align with what the customer's actually looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which immediately brings up the big question.
Yeah, how on earth do you figure out what the customer actually wants? Especially if, as I think we're about to get into, they might not even consciously know it themselves.
And that leads us straight into one of the most, fascinating and maybe slightly unsettling concepts in the source material. The customer as this inherently irrational decision maker.
Ah, yes. The imagery here is incredibly vivid, very memorable.
It really is. The source asks you to picture a customer standing right in front of you. On the surface, they look normal, maybe neutral, but to understand their buying process, you need a different mental image. Visualize an antenna coming out of their forehead.
An antenna.
Yeah, on the end of that antenna, there's a sensor. It's constantly active, got beeping away, taking in all the sensory data around them.
All sensory data, just walking into a shop. That sounds like a lot.
An overwhelming amount. And the source emphasizes everything gets absorbed. Think about it. The colors on the walls, the font on your sign, the background music or noise, the temperature, the smells. Maybe it's coffee brewing, maybe it's something less pleasant. Every single tiny detail in the environment.
And it's not just the physical space, right? The source says the sensor picks up on the person, too.
Absolutely. It's incredibly granular. The sensor registers how you stand, your posture. Are you making eye contact? What's your facial expression say? Stressed, welcoming, bored. It even notes the color of your hair, how it's styled. And down to the details of your clothes. Is there a crease in your pants? What color are your shoes? Are they shined, scuffed?
Shoelaces tied or untied. Seriously.
Seriously. According to the source, nothing is too small or insignificant. It all feeds into this sensory input stream. Every detail is registered, consciously or not.
So nothing escapes this constant flow of stimuli. It's absorbing the environment and everything about the person you're interacting with.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And the point isn't that the customer is making a conscious checklist of pros and cons with all this data.
No.
No, it's all feeding into that fundamental decision. Buy or don't buy.
Okay, so that's the information gathering, the input phase, handled by this sensor. But where does all that data go? How does the decision actually get made?
Right. This brings us to the core psychological model the source presents. The idea of the customer having two minds. There's the conscious mind, that's the sensor we were just talking about. Its job is to gather information, be aware of the world.
But you said, or the source says, a lot of what the conscious mind does is unconscious.
Exactly. It's a key paradox here. The conscious mind is gathering all these impressions, all this data, but it's largely unaware of most of it. It's automatic, habitual. It literally cannot stop absorbing these impressions, even if the customer seems distracted or isn't paying attention.
So the conscious mind is like a funnel, constantly collecting data, but not really processing it consciously. And it's not the part making the final call.
No, not according to this source. The conscious mind gathers the food, so to speak, but the decision, that happens in the unconscious mind. This is described as where all the action is. It's the hidden engine driving the choice.
And the unconscious mind, this is where we get that really powerful, almost eerie analogy, right?
Yes, exactly. The unconscious mind is compared to a vast, dark, underground sea. And swimming around in this dark sea are all these exotic creatures. Some swim alone, some in schools. They're silently looking for food, and each creature has totally different needs, different tastes.
And these creatures, they represent the customer.
They represent your customer's expectations.
Expectations.
Okay.
Swimming in a dark, unconscious sea, that is a striking image.
It is. And the source really stresses that this sea is totally foreign territory to the customer themselves. They don't have a conscious map of what's down there. No idea what expectations are lurking, waiting.
So customers aren't consciously aware of most of the underlying expectations that are actually going to drive their buying decision?
Not really, no. And here's the kicker. Every single one of those expectations, every creature down there, isn't something recent. It's the product of your customer's entire life. Their accumulated reactions, perceptions, attitudes, associations, beliefs, opinions, conclusions, everything they've absorbed and processed basically since birth.
Wow, a whole lifetime of programming influencing one purchase.
A full lifestyle. And these expectations, these creatures, they're just the way that the sum total of that history, the customer's personality, gets fed what it needs according to this model.
Okay, so let's trace the path again. Conscious mind, sensor, gathers sensory input, food. That food gets fed to the unconscious mind, the sea with expectation creatures. How does the decision itself play out?
This is the critical moment. If the sensory input from your business, your product, your message, even your appearance, matches the expectations swimming in that unconscious sea, the unconscious mind says yes, instantly. If the input is incompatible with those expectations, the unconscious mind says no, just as fast.
And this isn't deliberation, not weighing pros and cons.
Absolutely not, according to the source. The yes or no decision is made the instant the unconscious mind gets a taste of the input. The speed is, well, astonishing. The source gives some examples that really hammer this home.
Yeah, let's hear those examples. They really underline how fast this is supposed to happen.
They really do. The source points out, for instance, that with a TV commercial, the sale is often made or lost in the first 3 or 4 seconds.
3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah. For a print ad, tests apparently show that something like 75% of the buying decision happens just based on the headline.
75% from the headline alone.
And maybe the most challenging one for salespeople. In a face-to-face sales pitch, the data suggests the sale is often made or lost within the first 3 minutes.
3 minutes? That's barely enough time to say hello and shake hands. You haven't even gotten to your main points yet.
Exactly. And the source actually gives this rapid unconscious decision point a name: the psychographic moment of truth. The fundamental buying decision happens in that unconscious realm before conscious thought even gets a word in edgewise.
Okay, so if the decision is already made unconsciously, almost instantly, what happens after that split second, yes or no?
Then, according to the model, the unconscious mind sends its answer, that emotional yes or no, up to the conscious mind. And the conscious mind's job, after the decision is emotionally locked in, is to go out and find the rational armament.
Rational armament.
Yeah, the logical reasons, the justifications it needs to support the emotional commitment that's already been made.
So all the stuff we think of as decision-making, comparing features, price analysis, reading reviews, that's not actually part of the decision itself. It's the justification afterwards.
That's precisely the argument.
Yeah.
The source draws a really bold, even provocative conclusion from this model. Buying decisions are fundamentally made irrationally.
Yeah.
It even suggests that, if someone really tried, they could probably prove that no one has ever made a truly rational decision to buy anything, at least not in the way we usually think about rationality.
That is a massive shift in perspective because most marketing, most sales training focuses so heavily on logic, features, benefits, price.
And those things are still important, but maybe not for the reason we thought. They might primarily be the tools the customer's conscious mind uses to build a logical case for a decision that was already sealed emotionally. They're the arguments used to convince themselves, or maybe their spouse or their boss, that their instant gut feeling was actually perfectly sensible. They look for price comparisons or warranties not to decide, but to confirm.
This framework suddenly makes sense of so many common sales situations. Like when a customer says that classic line, I want to think about it.
Hmm.
According to this source, we shouldn't necessarily take that at face value.
The source is pretty blunt about it. Don't believe him. Why? Because in this model, they aren't actually going to go away and think about it in the way we mean think. They don't really know how to apply conscious thought to the unconscious process that already gave them their answer. The real thinking, the decision, already happened, unconsciously, instantly. They either felt a yes or a no.
So if I want to think about it, isn't about thinking, what are they really saying? What's going on there?
The source suggests it boils down to one of two things, only two. One possibility. They're just emotionally uncomfortable saying no directly to your face. Maybe they fear your reaction or just find it awkward. The second possibility, you simply haven't provided the specific food, that precise mix of sensory cues, messages, feelings that their unconscious mind was craving based on its unique set of hidden expectations.
That is powerful. It really emphasizes that, in this view, very little conscious thought, as we normally define it, actually enters the transaction at the point of decision. The core choice was made unconsciously, instantly, based on things maybe encountered right then or maybe built up over years, long before they even consciously considered buying from you, and they didn't even know it happened.
Which brings us back to that monumental challenge. If your customer doesn't consciously know what they truly want or why they want it, how in the world can you possibly know?
That sounds like an almost impossible riddle, especially given the complexity of that underground sea of lifetime expectations.
It does seem impossible. And the source agrees it is impossible. Unless you can somehow know more about your customer than they know about themselves. And the key to unlocking that deeper understanding, the source argues, is through demographics and psychographics.
Ah, right. The two essential pillars for building that scientific business system, the prototype that satisfies those hidden needs.
Exactly, demographics and psychographics. The core idea is, if you know who your customer is, that's demographics then, and the source says only then, can you start to figure out why they buy? And that's psychographics.
And knowing the who and the why lets you build a business that actually resonates with those unconscious expectations.
Precisely. It allows you to construct your entire business system, your prototype, not based on guesswork or your own preferences or what you think they want, but scientifically, designed specifically to feed the right creatures in the unconscious seas of your target customers.
Okay, let's nail down these definitions as the source presents them. Demographics first. What exactly is that?
Demographics is presented as the science of marketplace reality. It's the measurable, objective data about groups. It tells you who buys. Think about characteristics like age, gender, income level, education, job type, where they live geographically, marital status, family size, ethnicity, things you can factually quantify.
Okay, so that's the statistical snapshot of the customer. What about psychographics then?
Psychographics is the science of perceived marketplace reality. Demographics tells you who buys. Psychographics tells you why they buy. It dives into their internal world, their values, attitudes, interests, lifestyle choices, opinions, hopes, fears, and critically, those unconscious expectations driving their decisions. Psychographics explained why one demographic group might buy for certain reasons, while another seemingly similar group buys for totally different, maybe even opposite reasons.
The source uses a couple of really powerful examples to make this concrete, showing how psychographics tied to demographics plays out unconsciously. The IBM Blue example is fascinating.
It's a brilliant illustration. The source points specifically to the color of the book jacket. For the E-Myth revisited that specific shade of blue. It calls it IBM Blue. And the question is asked, why that blue? Why blue at all for a company like IBM? And the answer given is that this particular shade has an incredibly high appeal and preference for IBM's central demographic model.
The specific type of customer IBM was targeting and who historically bought from them.
Exactly. For that group, this color has a deep, positive, unconscious resonance. It's like love at first sight on some level.
It connects to deeper associations, maybe.
Absolutely. Think about the phrase true blue.
Ah, right. Loyalty, dependability.
Precisely. For IBM's core business customer, that specific blue unconsciously signaled reliability, stability, trustworthiness, exactly what you want in a major technology partner. The color itself acts as a psychographic trigger.
And the source drives the point home with the counterexample, right? What if IBM went a different direction?
Yes. What if IBM, targeting the same demographic, had chosen, say, orange as its main corporate color? The source suggests, maybe controversially, that because orange is at the opposite end of the preferential spectrum for that customer profile, well, the IBM success story might look very different. It's hard to imagine big orange having the same impact. The customer, faced with an orange computer brand, would likely have had unconscious resistance because the color clashed with their deep-seated psychographic preferences for what serious business looks like.
It sounds almost ridiculous on a conscious level you wouldn't buy a computer because of the color, but in this framework of instant unconscious judgment, it makes perfect sense.
It fits perfectly. And the source actually encourages you to test this power of unconscious perception yourself with a little mental exercise it calls the suit test.
Okay, let's try it. Describe the first scenario.
All right. Visualize anyone dressed in a deep navy blue suit. It's well-tailored, maybe subtle pinstripes, vents, trousers sharply creased. They've got on a crisp white starched shirt, a classic red and blue tie, and black, highly polished wingtip shoes.
Okay, got the image. Solid, professional.
How does that person make you feel? According to the source, ask yourself, do they seem businesslike, trustworthy, solid, reliable, dependable? The source says research backs this up. The Navy suit, presented this way, is maybe the most powerful uniform in business. Creates instant positive impact.
Yeah, I definitely get that feeling. Competence, trust. Okay, what's the contrast?
Now visualize the exact same person. Same face, same build, same everything, but change the clothes completely. This time they're wearing a two-piece orange suit, maybe silk, looks expensive. Underneath, a white-on-white patterned silk shirt, a loud green and white striped Italian silk tie, big silver belt buckle with green jade initials, diamond tie pin, maybe 2 carats, and peeking out from the bottom, white lizard cowboy boots.
Wow, okay, visualizing. Yeah. Very, very different feeling. Almost jarring.
The source asks, do you get the picture? And then immediately adds, well, you better take it fast because he's out of business.
Chuckles. That's blunt. But yeah, it makes the point instantly.
It really does. And here's the crucial takeaway the source emphasizes. The difference in your reaction isn't about the men. They're the same person. The difference is entirely in your mind, specifically your unconscious mind. And that judgment, trustworthy versus, well, out of business, it happened instantly. No conscious analysis of fabric or cost.
So the fact that I'd feel instinctively okay doing business with the navy suit guy, but really hesitant with the orange suit guy, that tells us something fundamental about reality.
It suggests, according to the source, that maybe there isn't an objective reality, as we usually think of it, dictating our reactions. Instead, reality exists only in perception. In someone's attitudes, beliefs, conclusions, those positions of the mind where all the unconscious expectations come from, and nowhere else.
So our individual reality, the one that drives these split-second unconscious buying choices, is built from our lifetime of experiences and the perceptions and expectations that result.
Exactly. And this deep understanding that customer decisions are driven by perceived reality, not objective reality, leads the source to refine that classic business mantra, the old saying, find a need and fill it. The source says that's actually inaccurate.
Okay, so what's the corrected version?
Find a perceived need and fill it.
Because if the customer doesn't perceive they need something, even if objectively they really, really do,
then in their decision-making world, the need doesn't exist. Their perception is their reality for that buying moment.
And these perceptions are right at the heart of it all.
Absolutely. So if you can understand their demographics, the who, you can then investigate their psychographics to grasp those perceptions, those hidden expectations, the why. And then you can figure out exactly what your business needs to do, what promise it needs to make and deliver to satisfy them. You can actually know your customer's psychographic reality.
Which means different groups, even if demographically similar, could have totally different psychographic realities and perceived needs.
Absolutely. The source gives the example of women of a certain age, education, income, family size, living in a particular area. They'll buy things for very specific psychographic reasons. And those reasons, operating unconsciously, will likely be different from another group of women, maybe living elsewhere, or with different life experiences, or even just slightly different core values. Those psychographic nuances predetermine what each group is primed to buy.
Understanding that level of complexity, it sounds like it demands serious effort, more than just, listing product features.
Oh, it's absolutely complex, and the source really hopes you're starting to feel that complexity. Because until you do, until you start taking marketing as seriously as, say, a Fortune 500 company does, until you give it that earnest scientific attention it requires, your business system, your whole prototype, it remains what the source calls a crapshoot, just guesswork.
And small business owners often fall into that trap of thinking marketing is just good common sense.
Which the source defines, a bit wryly, as often just meaning my opinion,
Right.
and relying on personal opinion for something this critical. The source calls it willful disinformation. Business owners make these arbitrary choices about fundamental things, logo design, stationery, store colors, signage, all based on what they like, or what their spouse likes, or maybe just what the local printer suggested looked nice. There's no real data, no understanding of what's psychographically correct for their target customer.
So they're basically speaking their own internal language based on their own sea of expectations instead of the customers.
Precisely. They need to get intensely interested in the science behind the marketing art. The force argues you need to develop a sensitivity to it, an intellectual curiosity. You have to be interested in everything your business needs. Fundamentally, you have to become a perpetual student of both the art and the science of business development.
The source makes an important distinction here, doesn't it, between understanding what to do and knowing how to do it.
That distinction is absolutely crucial. The main reason for presenting this whole psychological model, the demographics, the psychographics, it isn't necessarily to give you a detailed how-to manual right this second. It's primarily about making you understand what needs to be done, the why behind it all. Unless you deeply grasp the vital importance of marketing as the science of understanding hidden customer needs, unless you internalize the irrational, unconscious nature of their convictions and expectations, and unless you truly get that your business system, your prototype, is the product in the customer's mind, then all the how-to techniques in the world are just tactics without a strategy. They
Yeah.
don't build sustainable business.
But the source does give us a glimpse, a sort of foundational look at the how-to, using the example of Sarah and her pie business.
It does, yes. And it's presented specifically to show that the how is doable and necessary once you buy into the importance of the what.
Hmm.
So, Sarah's pie business. Customers are already coming in. In the source's model, that means they're unconsciously responding to something she's doing, maybe the caring she puts in, the shop's atmosphere, her personality.
So these existing customers, they already fit a certain demographic and psychographic profile that clicks with what Sarah offers, even if she doesn't consciously know why.
Exactly. So step one for Sarah, or any business owner, is who are these people already choosing you? What's their precise demographic profile? Where do they live? Income, age, family status.
And how does the source suggest getting this crucial info about your current best customers?
The answer is remarkably simple, but often overlooked. You ask them. Ask every single customer who comes in to share this information.
But people can be cagey about sharing personal demographic details. How do you get them to do it?
Practical solution from the source. Offer them something valuable in return. Ask them to fill out a detailed questionnaire, and in exchange, they get a free pie. Or a big discount. Or something else they'd want. That free pie, in Sarah's case, is the price you pay for incredibly valuable information. The source calls the potential answers a bonanza of insight.
And you don't stop at just basic demographics, right? You need more for the psychographic piece.
Absolutely. While you've got their attention, get psychographic and geographic data too. Ask about preferences. What colors do they like? Shapes. What words or phrases appeal to them or turn them off?
Getting at those unconscious triggers again.
Exactly. And go even further. Ask what other brands they buy in any category, not just pies. Preferred perfume, cars, clothes, jewelry, other foods, coffee shops, airlines.
How does knowing their favorite perfume brand help Sarah sell more pies?
This is a key psychographic link. Once you know the brands your ideal customers favor, you can research the advertising and marketing messages those brands use. By studying how successful companies communicate with people demographically and psychographically similar to your best customers, you learn what messages resonate. You can then adapt those themes and tones for your marketing to attract new customers who fit that same ideal profile.
So you're basically reverse engineering the communication style that already works for your target psychographic group.
You got it. You're learning their unconscious language.
And finding new customers isn't just randomly advertising everywhere.
No, it's about identifying more people like the ones you already have, the ones who already appreciate what you do. You use the geographic data from the questionnaires to pinpoint your trading zone.
The area where most current customers live.
Right. Then you can buy a targeted mailing list of people within that zone who also match the demographic profile of your existing customers.
That gives you a super targeted list of prospects who are statistically likely to share the same psychographic traits and perceived needs.
Exactly. Now, the source presents this how-to as just scratching the surface, obviously. But it clearly shows there are concrete, systematic, scientific ways to get this information, not based on opinion, but on customer reality, even their unconscious reality. And this process itself becomes a core part of your marketing.
Which leads us to maybe the broadest, most crucial definition of marketing in the source material. It's not just a department or a function within the business.
No, fundamentally, the source defines marketing as the entire business process, everything your company does to deliver its value. And it's viewed through a very specific customer-focused lens. What must our business be in the mind of our customers every step of the way for them to choose us over everyone else?
That's a radical reframing. Every touch point, every system, every employee interaction becomes part of marketing.
It absolutely does. The source outlines a core process flow that exists in every single business, big or small. It starts with the promise you make to attract prospects in the first place, commonly called lead generation, or just marketing.
Okay, so lead generation is about making that promise, hitting those unconscious expectations. What's next in the flow?
Once they show up, it continues with the sale, the process of lead conversion, or sales, turning interest into a transaction.
And after the sale.
It concludes, crucially, with delivering on the promise you made, before they leave or before the interaction ends. That's client fulfillment or operations.
So the promise made in marketing has to flow seamlessly through the sales interaction and be perfectly delivered by operations. It's one continuous experience.
Exactly. Whatever labels you use, marketing, sales, operations, lead gen, lead conversion, client fulfillment, it's the essential, interconnected key process. And the key to lasting success, the source insists, is how well integrated that whole process is, how totally connected and consistent each part is with the others, from the first ad they see to the final product they receive.
And the ultimate primary goal of this perfectly integrated process isn't just the first sale.
No, the primary aim, the big picture goal, is getting customers to come back for more. Repeat business. Loyalty.
Why is that the primary aim?
It's profoundly practical. As huge, successful companies like McDonald's, FedEx, Disney know deep down, the customer you already have is one hell of a lot cheaper to sell to again.
Then the customer you don't have yet. The cost of acquisition is way higher.
Massively higher. And that's why that integrated business process, lead gen flowing to lead conversion flowing to excellent client fulfillment, and how smoothly and consistently that works, is absolutely fundamental to growth and profit. And that whole integrated flow, that, the source reiterates, is marketing. The whole enchilada, not just the advertising part.
And this integrated process, it's not something you just set up once and it runs itself?
Not at all. It's alive, dynamic. It never stops evolving. The source talks about how different leaders, VP marketing, VP ops, VP finance, even though they have separate jobs, must share one single common purpose.
And that shared purpose that unites marketing, operations, finance.
It is to make a promise their target customer truly wants to hear one that resonates with those unconscious needs, and then to deliver on that promise every single time better than anyone else in the market would even dare to try.
And the source points to a central role, often the COO, who's responsible for driving this integration.
Yes, the COO, or whoever plays that role in a smaller business, is the key driver. They connect the pieces, maintain the integrity of the whole flow from promise to delivery. They're the arbiter of the company's strategic objective, the rules of the game, making sure everyone knows how their part contributes to winning.
This role, this function, is called the PowerPoint.
Right. It's where the hierarchy, the org chart, meets the process, the actual work and customer experience. It's where it all comes together, where the management system and the business development process actually happen.
And it's through this integrated, driven process that the company culture gets built, that constant reinforcement of, this is how we do it here.
Exactly. That's how standards are set, maintained, and improved. And that constant repetition and refinement, this is how we do it here, That is continuous improvement. It's a living, breathing process.
All focused on one thing.
Delivering the promise. The total customer experience from A to Z so consistently and exceptionally well that no one else in your industry even dares try to make the same promise because they know they can't match your delivery. That, according to the source, is the essence of marketing. That's what your whole business needs to be striving for.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway seems incredibly clear and maybe a bit challenging for business owners.
It is. You fundamentally have to shift your perspective away from yourself and get deeply into understanding your customer.
And not just what they say they want, but their unconscious, often irrational decision-making process, driven by that lifetime of expectations in their underground sea.
Absolutely. And the path to that understanding runs through demographics, knowing who they are, and psychographics, understanding why they buy, based on their perceptions.
Because you have to find and fill a perceived need, right? Not just an objective one.
Exactly. And this deep understanding isn't just for writing ad copy. It has to permeate every single part of your business process, from the initial promise, marketing lead gen, through the sales lead conversion, to the final delivery, ops client fulfillment. Marketing is that entire interconnected system.
And the goal is making them choose you, and crucially, making them want to come back.
And the source really hammers this home. Small businesses, because they're more fragile, have less room for error, need to take this scientific customer-first approach even more seriously than the big corporations.
We're operating in what the source calls an unforgiving age. Just information overload everywhere. Customers are swamped, confused, skeptical.
Yeah, it's noisy out there. So your challenge, if you want to cut through that noise and thrive, is to learn the specific language of your target customer's unconscious expectations. And then you have to speak it clearly, authentically, consistently in everything you do.
Right.
Otherwise, they just won't perceive you as the answer they're unconsciously looking for, and they'll drift right past.
This whole deep dive really forces you, the listener, to look at your own business and question assumptions you might not even know you're making.
It absolutely should. So maybe the final thought for you to mull over, drawing straight from this source material's core argument, is this. How many assumptions are you making right now about what truly motivates your customers? About their hidden expectations, their deep-seated perceptions?
And given what we've discussed, that customers often make their fundamental buying decision instantly, irrationally, long before conscious thought kicks in, what's the real cost to your business if those assumptions are wrong?
Thinking about that, where should you be focusing your most critical attention, your most valuable resources right now?